Okay, so could you kind of talk about that?
Yeah, so the whole piece, 72-hour hold, has a lot to do for me. When I looked at the call for submission and had my initial conversations around the ideas for the show, one of the things I immediately went back to was this sort of what I felt to be my first challenge of home, which coincidentally wasn't like when my parents split up. Like that certainly was a challenge of home, but it seemed more like an expansion of home. Like when my mother left, I got 2 homes, rather than, so it didn't seem, even though I didn't really feel at home at either one of them, or I felt at home at both of them. Like it was my first real understanding of balance, like creating balance, which is where I live a lot of my life, between happiness and sadness, maleness and femaleness, queerness and straightness, like that. I've always managed to be able to see and feel the whole bit, so I never actually fit into any identity. When I think about homelessness and I think about like being institutionalized, and I remember this quote from my chart that said, "Patient has no sense of home," and I remember seeing that, like this was years later when I was in the process of writing my book, and just thinking, what does that mean? What do you mean patient has no sense of home? I mean, I'm 15 years old, I'm in a psych ward, and like, are you thinking I should be feeling at home? Because I was starting to feel like maybe this is where I was going to spend the rest of my life, but that wouldn't have been nice. Like, I would think that your goal was for me to figure out how to get out. So that was sort of this challenge, but then as a transgender person also thinking in terms of being at home in my own body, in my own community, in my own, in my life, being at home. I definitely, it's not that I've certainly had different periods in my life where I have been what would be termed sort of technically homeless, where I've had no place to sleep, no place to live, and I've had, fortunately, a community around me that was able to take me in most of those times. And creating new family and opportunities, but I definitely have been through periods where I don't make enough money to cover stuff, like living in apartments or things like that. There's also the aspect of mental health issues that I think that the piece touches on in terms of access to care, assumptions about homelessness, and about like that frequently when you are homeless, you're on the street, like you could be dealing with mental health issues or assumed mental health issues, or that one of the real goals about my work and about the piece is also trying to establish sort of an opportunity to destigmatize the experience, not only for people who haven't had the experience, but also for those people who have. Like that this happened, and it can happen, or it might happen, but it doesn't make you. It doesn't mean you don't have place in the world, or that you don't have rights, or that you don't have. That again, it's another way that we kind of overanalyze and police people into conforming to an idea of normalcy, that we're supposed to think a certain way, act a certain way, we're not supposed to talk to ourselves, we're not supposed to, because that becomes scary to people, and that, but if you do, where's your home in that? You still have the right to walk down the street. You still have the right to go order food in a restaurant. You still have the right to go see a movie. And perhaps you have Tourette's and you have a tic, and every time somebody says, giggles, you say shit. Like you still need to be able to go to the movies, like, and have people to sort of like create compassion in terms of like what's the expectation? Is it that anyone who's not willing to be quiet needs to go to their room? Like that's
right.
That's not a way for us to live in a society or in a community.
And so, how have you kind of with your projects here at Redline? working in conjunction with the other artists, how have you personally tackled the issue of homelessness in a way that perhaps can get other people to, the public who haven't experienced it, to start thinking differently about it? Like, how do you bring about a shift of perception?
I think most of it is through modeling and communication. Just having really open, transparent conversations. To engage a community of providers, to be thinking broader and not making sort of blanket judgments and ideas about people that they meet who might be on the streets or might not. I work a lot with, a percentage of the youth that I work with are homeless at a variety of different times. And, and I think even modeling in terms of talking with them around their own issues of self-worth, and, so that they go out into the world and aren't, don't feel inferior, as a result of their situation or circumstance.
Right. Have you had any? Have you guys had any of the homeless population come through the exhibit? Mm-hmm. And what has the reaction been?
You mean in terms of the youth for my program coming through?
Oh, sure. Any demographic.
I think for the most part, they've really been appreciating it. I think that they, a lot of the youth that I'm interacting with, I spend most of my time with them in here. Mm-hmm. So I don't know that I've had the opportunity to ask them about the whole show. But I know that what they've expressed to me about this particular piece and being in here is that, and frequently what they talk to me about is feeling really honored by my ability to express. Some of my youth have been through similar situations as I have, and so, but don't always find that they have the power or the strength or the voice to be able to tell that to the world. So I think frequently I feel mixed sometimes for people who I feel gratitude for being able and willing to kind of show myself in that way, which in essence means that they're being shown, like they're able to see the world respond to me, and then they feel a little more confident about expressing themselves.
Right.
And so I think that and they bring me coffee and gifts and food, and so it's very nice of them.
Yeah.
But the other piece that they really seem to really like in the show is the Amber's piece with the cement bed.
Oh, this mattress that's out here?
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was made out of cement.
Yeah, it's 1,600 pounds.
Wow.
It's like they needed a forklift to bring it in. And what I find really interesting about that piece that I was thinking about today is just how often people just dismiss it and walk by it.
Yeah.
Because they... And so in and of itself, that, is sort of a mimicking of the ways that we try to, not see homeless people or not, so it's like this really interesting kind of, because people are like, oh, it's just a mattress. Oh, it's just,
and that's been, I've been here 3 days already, and I've never really given it any thought. That's been my experience with it, exactly.
Right.
Wow.
Which is, it's which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And I hadn't really thought about I just thought everybody knew.
Really?
Like that, So, but I've been telling people, I'm like, that cement, and they're like,
I wasn't sure if I was allowed to sit on it or anything.
Yeah, I don't think you can't sit on it, but you can touch it.
Really?
Okay. You can feel it and feel that it's cement, but yeah, it's and in that regard, I just find that piece really fascinating. Just, I think it'll be a really awesome, if it was able to be out in the public, just kind of be in a park.
Right.
This big cement bed, in the middle of a grass patch.
Right. That would be cool.
That would be, I feel like it has real profoundness to it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess another question in regards to kind of this issue of homelessness, and that that's a very kind of biased term. It really does carry a lot of connotations and prejudices.
Mm-hmm.
How has that personally affected you? What has your been experience with that? Have you ever self-identified as homeless?
Yeah, I mean, well, like I was saying earlier, like I feel like I mean, homelessness to me isn't always about walls. It's not always about, where you sleep. Sometimes it's finding a home within a community, or feeling understood, or seen, or witnessed. Like in your world.
Uh-huh.
Like, do you that and again, as in terms of identifying, like being in my own body, being able to be the person I know myself to be, when the world outside of me is telling me I'm, this one gender, or now I have to be this other gender, and that.
Uh-huh.
But what happens when you live a life in balance? And for those people, sometimes that's a conversation about people who want to, be in houses or don't want to be in houses, or sometimes it's about, whether you can get access to the house that you want to live in or not, or be around the people that you want to be with. But for me, homelessness has really has been around identity, and that I don't know that I've ever. I think that it's like I'm about to turn 47, and I think that I'm just now getting to a place where I understand my home, and that's been a struggle for me. Since I was a teenager.
Right.
So we're talking about 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not, and while sometimes I have an apartment,
Uh-huh.
it didn't necessarily mean that I felt like I had a home.
Mm-hmm. So you say homelessness for you has always been kind of about identity. How has that translated into your the work that you do, like regarding your art?
Well, I think that a lot of my work has been about that search for identity, or playing with language, trying to play with imagery around identity, around my identity. I would consider everything that I do to be a self-portrait, even though you wouldn't always recognize me based on the imagery or on the expression.
Uh-huh.
I also have this other practice in my work around these concepts of wabi-sabi, which is an old Japanese aesthetic that's around sort of the reclaiming of beauty on its own terms, and the beauty of imperfection.